Hello, welcome to another episode of A Peek Behind EU Careers by EPSO, the European Personnel Selection Office. My name is Luís Loureiro de Amorim. I'm really happy to have here today in our studio in Brussels my dear colleague Martine, who works for the Directorate-General for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and Small and Medium Enterprises, known in the Euro bubble as DG Grow. Martine, it's a real pleasure to have you here. It's a sunny afternoon in Brussels today, even though the autumn has just started. And I wanted to start by asking you about your job, about your career for the institutions, which I know spans quite a number of years. If you could share with our listeners when and where you started and what you've done so far until you landed in your current job in DG Grow.
Yes. So hello, everybody. And thank you very much, Luis, for having invited me today to speak and share my experience in working for the Commission. First of all, I would like to say that I'm very proud to be working for this institution. I've been working here now exactly for 30 years, and I don't remember any day when I was bored. As far as I am concerned, I've been working mostly for small and medium-sized enterprises that are the backbone of the EU economy. I've also been working in the space policy when it started to really become important at the time with Galileo and Copernicus, two important flagship programs. Then I had the chance to work as a head of unit in an executive agency. So it was a big challenge. It doesn't happen every day that you are being asked to create a unit from scratch, to hire up to 30 people, to work in establishing all the different procedures and really at the same time delivering support to our clients who were at that time business support organizations.
What was the executive agency that you were sort of responsible for?
It was the Executive Agency for Competitiveness and Innovation that has then been merged with other executive agencies. And today it's EASMEA, the Executive Agency for Innovation and SMEs.
What is an executive agency? I mean, for people listening to us out there who are not very familiar with the structure of the European Union, what is it that an executive agency does?
So executive agencies have been set up in order to work on operational programs. In our case, it was also working on, in my case, working on energy programs, on transport, but also programs to support small and medium-sized enterprises.
So in a way, another aspect of EU careers that many times people may not be aware of, that in these executive agencies, of course, people are also working for the European project.
They bring their expertise, and this is also what they are looking for in executive agencies, really sometimes very technical in expertise. When you have to run projects in research and development, of course, you need to have top-notch specialists to work on this subject. So you don't need to be necessarily a big expert on EU policy, but you need to be able to manage quite specific and technical projects, I would say.
But you're working now in DG Grow, and I understand that you're working in support of Ukraine.
Where my personal history and my professional life managed to come very close together, because I had adopted two girls from Ukraine about 20 years ago. So I have been following what was happening in that country for now 20 years. And when the war broke, I just thought I need to do something. I really want to be very much involved. So I started with in different NGOs. I hosted a family of 3 Ukrainian people in my house for 7 months, but I thought I want to do more. And I looked around in DG Grow, and I contacted the Deputy Director-General, who said, look, there could be a very interesting opportunity if you would join the Business Cooperation Unit, because we want business to go on between Ukraine and the EU. Ukrainians need to find new opportunities to export their products that they can no longer export to Russia or Belarus. We also want really to give this positive signal that business can go on. despite the war. We have seen that companies there are really struggling to keep on working, but they do. And recently I just saw figures that the exports have been even growing in this time, and they are extremely resilient. So it's a lesson that we're learning every day, working with Ukrainian companies and Ukrainian people. We can really see how resilient they are, how motivated they are to join the EU. They are fighting for freedom. They are fighting, of course, for peace and for rule of law. These are important values that we defend in our institution. And that's why I thought that I could at the same time bring my expertise of having worked on SMEs, on business cooperation, to the benefit of Ukraine, to also help Ukrainian companies to understand what it means to work in the EU in view of the accession process. There is a lot of expectation. I can see the government is working very, very hard to make this process happen as quickly as possible. And of course, we also have EU companies who are interested to invest, and we strongly encourage them to invest, to do business in Ukraine.
What a wonderful opportunity for you to combine your personal story, the fact that you've adopted two daughters from Ukraine, now in this particular moment to be able as well, through your work, to help Ukraine and to establish a closer relationship between the European Union and Ukraine. I think it's quite a beautiful story. There is a personal element that speaks to me because I'm a father through adoption myself. So I wanted to acknowledge that. Martine, I know you're French, and I read with a lot of interest a few months ago an article in the intranet, the internal internet of the Commission called My Intracom and Commission en Direct, to use the proper term, about an experience that you had in Strasbourg with a group of prisoners. I mean, this is not something that I read very often about, that officials meet with a group of prisoners in a prison to talk about the European Union, but you've done it. And I very much wanted you to tell us about it.
Well, yes, it was quite an experience, but it's part of my fight against Euroscepticism that has been growing over time. And as you mentioned, I come from Strasbourg. It's one of the EU capitals. I feel very much French. Having lived here for 30 years, I also feel Belgium in a way because I can vote. And I also feel very European. So whenever I hear fake news or really this anti-European discourse, it really touches me. And that's why I have been taking part of a program that is called Back to School that the EU institutions have launched in order to encourage officials to go back to their former school and talk to students about what they have been doing, why they decided to work for the Commission, what kind of job they have there. And then I heard that there is also a school in the jail in Strasbourg, and I was invited to go there and speak to three groups of. They don't call them prisoners; they call them classmates when they enter the school.
Inside the school,
inside the school, I had at least 6 corridors to go through until I could get to the classroom. I couldn't have my mobile phone with me, and yeah, it was, I would say, a very interesting experience to be in this environment. But what was even more interesting was the level of, I would say, anti-Europe, but also anti-everything, anti-France, anti-system, you can, whatever.
A lot of antagonism.
Exactly. And I could feel that at the beginning when I entered the room and started to have like easy discussions. And so when I wanted to follow a bit what I usually do in giving presentations about what is Europe, how it was created, and its history, where we stand today, what are our objectives for the future. I realized that this wouldn't work with this group. So I decided to go for an open discussion. And that, I think, was very appreciated because they could ask any questions. I told them from the start, you won't be judged. You can put any questions. And they had many. Believe me, I mean, they all had a lot of questions on many different topics. And I think the fact that I was listening to them already gave them the impression that what they say does matter. And that was a good way to then start going more into discussions, explaining. For instance, when I explained to them that I was working on to support Ukraine, they didn't really see why Europe is even helping Ukraine, and I was really telling them that we are helping a neighboring country that is also fighting for their peace, as I said, for democracy, for the rule of law, but they saw it from a completely different perspective. And I could see that they were very much influenced by the Russian propaganda. And when I started to go one argument after the other, then they started to realize that the world is maybe not black and white.
Very complex, yes.
Very complex. And they were asking even more and really wanted to go more into details. And I thought that was very interesting. Because I guess, like many people, they often just read social messages on social media. They don't really go for in-depth articles. Talking about the EU is very often difficult. And for us in the Commission, it's particularly difficult to address this type of audience. But I think we, in a way, I would say, we all have not a responsibility, but I think if we all should be proud of the work we are doing, explain it around, and I'm 100% sure that all the work we are doing can have a direct beneficial impact to everybody, even these people in prison. I told them about when they would be going out, about the different social programs, professional opportunities, thanks to EU regional funds. I told them about what we're doing to support developing countries. They had no clue about that. So there is a lot I think we can be very proud of, and we should communicate even more about that.
Yeah, still a lot for us to do when it comes to reaching out, engaging in dialogue. We're coming to the end of this very pleasant conversation. And is there something that I didn't ask you about that you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, maybe I'd like to say something about my colleagues in general, because over time, I think I have had the chance to meet really very nice, brilliant colleagues from all around Europe. And I think it's the fact of working together on one project gives, you really also need to make compromises. You need to really listen to each other's perspective, but all together, I think it comes out as an interesting product. Now, over time, we are working at a pace that was not maybe the case in the 80s late 80s when I joined. Everything now is digitalized. Maybe we lose a bit the contact with our target group. That's why it's good to have also this contact with external people. But I would say it's definitely an exciting place because we cover so many topics that are, I would say, on the top of the agenda, and we relate to all the big issues that everybody is concerned about, be it environmental issues or be it more political issues like I'm dealing with today. So I think everybody has a place here. Everybody can contribute, even if you didn't study, as I said before, EU affairs. We are looking for very knowledgeable people, very committed, and I'm sure you will get a lot back from this experience working with us.
Thank you so much, Martine, for your time and for sharing with us what your experience has been so far. This was a peek behind EU careers by EPSO with Martine Dis.
Thank you very much, Louise.
A Peek Behind EU Careers by the European Personnel Selection Office is an opportunity for people to learn about the life, work of EU staff in the so-called Eurobubble, in Luxembourg, in Brussels, and beyond. It is supported by the Directorate-General for Research and Innovation, in whose studios we record the podcast.